If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for joining us for yet another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast, and I'm Shane Larson, your host, coming at you today with an awesome interview. Every week is an amazing interview, and this week is no different. We've got an awesome guest going to show you how things happen behind the scenes at these sporting events, and the reason I brought him on is because I've been to many sporting events. I know you guys have too, and we always see the finished product when we're at a sporting event or when we're watching it on TV, but we don't see the behind the scenes of what it takes to get it started. And then during the event, how do these people keep the fans engaged? Well, that's why we're bringing on the Director of Fan Engagement for the minor league baseball organization, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. You're going to like it. On the phone with me today, we've got Hunter Horenstein, Director of Fan Engagement for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. Hunter, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, what's up, Shane? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to have you. Funny story is I follow this group on Facebook. I've been following this website called Work in Sports, and in this, I also listen to their podcast because it's something that I'm very interested in. And randomly, just the other day, I'm on this Facebook page. I see Hunter pop up on there, and I'm like, dude, this would be an amazing guest for my show because it's going to bring a whole new dynamic to what I'm trying to do, and that's deliver a panoramic view on sports. So that's kind of where I came in contact with Hunter, was on a Facebook page for this thing called Work in Sports. But Hunter, let's get to know you a little bit and who you are and what you do. So first off, Hunter, where are you from?
Originally, I'm from California, born in Long Beach, so I'm a SoCal guy. But currently, I'm in South Carolina with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. I'm the Director of Fan Engagement for the Pelicans, and we are the Advanced A affiliate of the Chicago Cubs.
Nice. Okay, so from California all the way to South Carolina, what's the differences like in culture over there? Do you miss Cali?
I do. I think I mean, obviously it's home. But fortunately I'm at a beach, so it's not too different than what I grew up with. It's a little more humid and the mosquitoes are a little bit bigger, but other than that, it's not a whole lot different than home. They just swap out Mexican food for Southern food out here. And that's about it.
Nice. All right. I like that. It's just kind of a different culture, but in a sense, it's like, yeah, like you said, it's just swapping one thing out for the other, and it's kind of the same thing. It's cool how sports can take you across the world, even if you're not an athlete yourself or like, a coach or something. But even when you're in the sports realm, you're the Director of Fan Engagement for the Pelicans, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans over there. It's taken you to different places, which is awesome for learning and development and growth and everything, not just in sports, but in life. So what's your history in sports, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up playing ball all the way through about high school. Realized pretty at an early age in high school that everyone was a lot bigger and stronger and faster than I was, so that sports moving forward was probably not going to happen. But I did want to stay in sports. I knew that's kind of the realm I wanted to work in. And went to school up in San Francisco. Interned for a couple of minor league independent teams. Even in high school, I was on the grounds crew at Blair Field, which is the home for Long Beach State for the Dirtbags. And so I've been around kind of just baseball and sports, since I was pretty young. But fortunately now kind of working in the business. This is, just finished up my second season here in Myrtle Beach, and my sixth overall working in professional baseball. And that's been at a number of different ranks. I've done the collegiate, I've done the independent, unaffiliated minor league ball, and now obviously in affiliated minor league baseball, and kind of been all over the place and done a number of different roles, whether it's grounds crew early on, whether it was community relations, promotions, media relations. So it's just kind of been part of my life, and I'm very fortunate to have made it a career, because if you can't play, this is the next best thing because you get to stay in the sport.
I love how you brought that up. I love it because so many of us, the vast majority actually, there's a very small percentage of, athletes who actually can make it to the next level and then actually after that make it to, professional realm and get paid to do what they do, because it's just, there's so many. And then I like how you mentioned this, and not in a negative way, but you mentioned that kind of like reality set in a sense when you were in high school. That's kind of what happened to me as basketball was going on. I felt like I was really good at basketball, but I was 6'2", and I was a shooting guard, and I wasn't the fastest guy in the world. I could shoot all day long, but then reality set in that, it's going to be a lot more difficult to make my name at 6'2" in basketball when everybody else is like 6'3", 6'4" as point guards in the NBA. So it's very difficult. And so reality set in, and you kind of made that transition to still be in the sports world. And I love that. I think that's awesome. And you're now the director of fan engagement after going through a variety of roles, like you mentioned. And I want to talk about this, like your exact role with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans and what's going on, because we know that fans are a huge part of the sport, like of any sport for that matter. But as the director of fan engagement, what does your job entail?
So that's a tricky question, and I don't mean that with disrespect, but you ask anybody in minor league baseball and minor league sports and just in general, it's vastly different than if you were to speak to somebody that's at the big league level. In the minors, we wear a number of different hats. We are kind of, it's an all hands on deck sort of mentality, especially if you have a smaller staff than some other teams might have. But ultimately, I focus a lot on on three things: our in-game presentation, our in-game show. So the promotions that we roll out, whether they're giveaways, whether they're theme nights, what we do in-game as far as the in-game, in between any games, skits, basically the show. Once the production starts, I work very closely with our senior director of marketing and our video production manager, and kind of the three of us really orchestrate the game days. Making sure that what I've got going on the field, whether it's a promo, whether it's a mascot skit, whether it's our promo team interacting with the fans, that lines up with what the idea behind all the video stuff and the lights and everything. Make sure that syncs up with what our video manager has in mind for that. And ultimately then I work with our marketing director on how we package that and send that out, whether it's digitally, in ad print or anything like that. So packaging our show is a huge thing. The second tier is our social media, our digital media marketing. So again, working very closely with our media relations manager, working with our senior director of marketing, and working with our video folks to package content, create content, produce content, think of that content, whether it's, we want to go beyond just sending out a tweet saying, hey, tickets are on sale for XYZ promotion. We want it to be fun. We want it to be engaging. Social media is such a huge part of what we do nowadays. So I get to kind of think of the fun stuff that we get to think of, whether it's marketing or a player engagement sort of piece, and then how we package and send that out. And then the third part of it is our community relations efforts, getting our players out in the community, having our staff out in the community, fundraising opportunities at the ballpark, our nonprofit that we have, the Pelicans Community Fund, overseeing those efforts. So it's really it's kind of a three-headed job, but throughout the course of the season, you can be doing a number of different things, whether it's pulling tarp or helping helping with appearance duties, all sorts of stuff. But those three are really what I focus in on during the season and the off season.
Man, that's a lot of stuff to be in charge of, but I think it's really cool because it sounds like you're in a sense you're a project manager. You're working very closely with multiple different areas, different departments within the organization, and then obviously you got the marketing background, and you kind of have to do some data analysis in regards to the community, like what's going to work for this specific program in this community. How do we get out to them and make it, with social media? There's a lot that goes into that specific job, and that's really interesting to hear from your perspective because, I've never spoken to anybody who's done that. So this is really cool. Now, here in Boise, Idaho, which is where I'm from, we have the Boise Hawks minor league baseball organization. And I mean, the community here seems to rally behind them, because they're pretty much our only baseball team. Boise State University is going to have a baseball program in the next two years, I believe, is when they launch it. But for now, that's our only baseball organization. And surprisingly, we get a lot of community engagement with the Hawks. But when we had the Idaho Stampede, who was the NBA D League at the time, their affiliate, the Utah Jazz affiliate here, we could hardly get anybody to the games. So we had like two different sports, and we couldn't get anybody at the basketball games, even though we had some really good talent. And now we get everybody at the baseball games. I'm curious, though, how do you feel like your community there, Myrtle Beach, like everybody around that area, how do they feel for, the Pelicans? Do they have a pretty good support system from the community?
Right. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. In Myrtle Beach, we're somewhat of an anomaly. You look across the rest of minor league baseball, the majority of teams will, like Boise, really rely on their community support. A lot of the time, sometimes, some of the times they're the only show in town, like would be the case in Boise. For us, we're a tourist destination. We're a vacation spot. We get, thousands of visitors every summer. Once June hits to August, it's tourist season. Our affiliation with the Cubs has only made us even more of a destination, for folks coming from Chicago, or all over the country for that matter. So we get a ton of tourists that come in, and out of towners that come in, to Myrtle Beach, and that's great. They fill our ballparks in the summer. That said, we also have a very strong community base, and the focus over the last couple of years has been to go back and tap into that even more so. And we've done a few different community programs. We have a new locals benefit program that we rolled out this year that saw a lot of great success. We've revamped our school initiatives, and our youth program initiatives, to try to capture some of the more younger local market. So we have a great community here that the team in the last few years has reinvested in trying to tap into. We do a lot for our local veterans. We have a great veteran presence down here. We have a great program that taps into them to bring them out to the ballpark and honor them. So the team, we have our work cut out for us, but the community support has been great. A lot of folks, get it. I think people understand what a team means to the community, and we've done some programs to give back to our community, and that's ultimately what it's about. We have a responsibility as the pro team in town to support the community that supports us, because without the local support, we're irrelevant. So it's a tall task. We don't take it lightly, and the last couple of years have really shown that we've gone back and reinvested in bringing out the locals, and not only just relied on our tourists that come in during the summer.
I like it, man. That's very different. I guess it all depends on the city that you're working in and the organization that you're with, because it seems like it's a little different than Boise, and that's cool. It's cool because that causes you to have to adapt, and it sounds like for your specific role, that's a really important piece. Like, you got to know what you've got to market to in regards to the community, and if it's a touristy area, I mean, that you're going to be dealing with a lot of that. That's really interesting. So appreciate you breaking that down for us. Is there any like struggles that you see with this role? What's like the toughest part about your job? I mean, just talking about it seems overwhelming to the normal individual who's not like in it, but is there anything that you struggle with, or like your toughest part you would say about the job?
So I mean, there's always going to be, in any job, there's going to be struggles. But honestly, I would say that the hardest thing, and I think the one big caveat to what we do, and not just myself, but everybody in minor league baseball, that I don't think the general public gets, is the time and energy and the sacrifice that a staff will put in during the season. We have 70 home games, not including outside events that happened at the ballpark. Sometimes some of our staff will go on the road with the club, like our it's a grind. Here in South Carolina, you get into the dog days of summer, and it's 100 degrees with 90% humidity, and you're in the mid end. We had one stretch this year where it was 14 games in 16 days, and the grind was real. It was an exhausting stretch of time, and our unofficial office slogan was just survive and advance. do what you can to get through the day, focus on one day at a time, and just keep trucking along. So, you know, I enjoy my job. I love what I do. You know, the people that I work with enjoy what they do. You know, we're surrounded by a really good staff here in Myrtle Beach. So really the biggest struggle, I would say, is just, you know, getting through a season and understanding that there's going to be times and that you have to sacrifice, and times where, you know, you're going to feel like you're getting driven into the ground. But once the gates open and fans come in, you know, that adrenaline kicks back in and you're ready to rock and roll again. So, I think, you know, if there are people out there that go to minor league baseball games, I hope they can take away that, there's a lot of hardworking people that put this show on every single night throughout the summer, and, it comes at the expense of a lot of, time given up. So, you know, not necessarily a struggle, but it is definitely something that we're all aware of when we get into this business.
For sure. No, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because we go to these events. That's one of my favorite things to do, is travel and go to sporting events. Doesn't matter what kind. I love sports, but you don't get to see the behind the scenes that goes on to actually put that event together, whatever it may be, whether it's a college football game, a minor league baseball game, an NBA game. It doesn't matter. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and then the finished product is basically everything put together, and then the athletes are out there performing, but you don't get to see everything behind the scenes. And I think that's awesome to hear it from your perspective. What would you say is your favorite part, Hunter?
That's another tough one. I think, I'll go back to, you know, all the time that we spend putting, you know, effort and time and energy into a promotion, and then seeing it come to fruition, or the time and energy that we put into a new program, whether it's a community-based program or a fan benefit program or something along those lines, and seeing the reaction of the people that it impacts. For example, this season, we had, our Deaf Awareness Night, where we had one of our folks in our front office, our corporate marketing manager. His name's Ryan Canella. He had a business relationship with a gentleman who has a deaf daughter, and in an off-season networking event had reached out to Ryan and said, "Hey, do the Pelicans do anything as far as fundraising, and could we maybe raise a little bit of money for this?" And to Ryan's credit, he took off with it. He came into I won't forget this ever. He came into mine and our marketing director's office and was like, "I want to do a Deaf Awareness Night with specialty jerseys." And he was like, "Let's do it. How do we do this?" And it kind of just took off from there. We had these awesome jerseys we replaced our Pelicans script with American Sign Language. We got a ton of national exposure and a ton of people that, you know, picked this story up and picked up our promotion once we announced it online. And we brought in former outfielder Curtis Pride, who's deaf, and he ran a free clinic for deaf kids before the game. We had an ASL intro class for our staff and for all the fans to come to the ballpark early. It was just a great night of inclusion, and ultimately what we're all about in minor league baseball. And so those kind of moments are probably my favorite, when you get to kind of look back at all the labor that you put in and kind of reap the benefits of it, and you see the lives that you're impacting on a daily basis, and people emailing or tweeting at us from all the way, you know, across the country saying, "Hey, couldn't be at the game, but I see what you guys are doing, and I think that's awesome. Thank you." You know, that's what this is about. It's about connecting with the community. It's about connecting with fans and people, and you know, the baseball takes care of itself. You know, wins or losses, it doesn't matter. It's the experience people have, and that's my favorite part. Is every once in a while throughout the season, you have moments where you sit back and go, "Wow, look what we did." And you know, there's no better feeling. There's absolutely no better feeling than that.
It's awesome, man. It sounds like you have it's bigger than sports. It's bigger than baseball. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, we obviously, like I said, we see the finished product at the end, but there's a lot of things like that. It's bigger than sports, and it's really cool that you get to be a part of that. Now, I guess, I mean, as a director of fan engagement, you're basically doing all the behind the scenes stuff. Do you actually get a second to watch any of the games, or are you so, like, you know, encompassed with everything else going on?
It depends. It depends on the game. Usually some of our bigger nights, if we have a lot of promotions going on, or if it's a big night where we've got stuff on the field or a giveaway, a lot of the time it's all hands on deck. So I don't even really get a chance to eat dinner sometimes. Other nights it might be a little slower and you get a chance to kind of sit down and relax. So it just varies. I do say though that I tell all of our promo team members, we bring in promo interns throughout the season, and the one thing that I tell them, because I was told this when I first started my career, on opening day when the two teams are lined up on the line and the anthem's going, try to take a 30-second snapshot and just soak it in and just try to remember that or take that memory and tuck it away and take it out, at a point where you're going to need it throughout the season. Because again, it is a grind. It is a long season. We're usually running around like chickens with their heads cut off halfway all through the game. But I try to take at least one moment and soak it in. To answer your question, yes, no. But certainly always try to do opening day and kind of remember, all the work that we put in the off season, and now we're at the starting line. Let's start the marathon. There's definitely times where you just kind of try to sit back and soak it in. A lot of those moments of reflection though happen after the season. Once the last game is played and you're just kind of, getting a chance to catch your breath a little bit for a couple of days, and you go, wow, look what we did. So, you absolutely try to take advantage of remembering those moments.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And as a fan of the game, Hunter, obviously you've been around sports your entire life for the most part, and now you're involved in them from a perspective of a director of fan engagement. So you're working deeply within sports on the back end. But minor league players in any sport, whether it's baseball or you're looking at like the D League for basketball or any kind of they play overseas, they kind of get the short end of the stick is what I always say. Like people don't see how athletic and good they are at the sport, but they're still part of a very small percentage of athletes that make it to the next level. And people kind of forget that. And I believe that's kind of why our basketball team here in Boise, the Idaho Stampede, kind of folded, because the fans they just thought of it as a minor league basketball team in a sense. Like it's the D League. It's not as good as anything else, but what they failed to realize was these were athletes that made it past, the collegiate level and were still playing at a professional level. They were actually really good, better than the majority of people that play basketball. So I just want your overall thoughts being involved in the minors for baseball, especially like you've been involved in baseball for the last 6 years. What are your overall thoughts on the athleticism it takes to compete in the minor leagues?
Oh, I will always forever back the players. I think that's a good point that you brought up about the Stampede, that, there's this misconception that just because it's the minor leagues that for some reason these players are no more talented than the guys that you see play, on the big stage. And, the difference is that some of them just aren't as seasoned. You talk about some of the best raw talent that you can see, and all those folks come through the minor league system. There's some really good baseball to be had at the minor league level. And not only that, but it's the best bang for your buck too. You're seeing professional athletes go out there and do things that the majority of folks in the world can't do, and you get to do it without breaking the bank. I just don't see how anybody could think that it's not the best value for your dollar. But these players, you talk about, them going on a marathon, we talk about it as a staff, but these players, they play the games, they're playing in the 100-degree heat. They're playing till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and then getting on a bus to drive 12 hours. They're doing it every single day with minimal off days in between. And, I think that takes a huge amount of grind to do that, and athleticism to go out there and perform every single day, like that. I think, one thing that the Cubs have done, which is great, and a lot of teams are starting to do this, is, they're investing into their, minor league systems as far as, getting nutritionists and getting the right food and fueling the players the right way. So, that just goes to show you that, these teams, they're not wearing the big league uniform, but they value these players just as much as the next guy. And I've been lucky to see some really good players come through the minor league teams that I've worked for, and who are now, a few of them are not playing, at the big league level. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is definite, there are guys here that definitely will be playing in the big leagues, and you can just tell. But all of these guys, all of the guys that we see, I mean, they're all athletes. They're still in the very, very small percentage of professional athletes in America. When you look at the big league level, you're looking at a very, very small tip of the iceberg. And the minors are everything that's below the waterline there. And even then, it's still a very small percentage of folks that get to do that. So, yeah, no, absolutely. No question that these guys are serious athletes.
I appreciate that insight. It's awesome to hear from someone who's involved with it. So that's kind of what I wanted to get here. It's just kind of like explain to the listeners. I've tried to do it multiple times before, and I think we're getting to that point where people are starting to understand it, but we just need some more, I guess, validation with that. And so you mentioned you had a couple of players that have come through that you've seen. Who was the best player you've seen during your time working, either with the Pelicans or just in baseball in general?
Ooh, the best. That's a tough question. Off the top of my head, I'll name some and this is in no particular order or anything like that. But we had Gleyber Torres in 2016 with the Pelicans, and we also at the same time as Gleyber. They were our shortstop and our second baseman in 2016, and now they're both big league players. And you talk about athleticism, and you talk about guys that you looked at and they passed the eye test, and you were like, wow, they're head and shoulders above everybody else. Those two guys were an absolute joy to watch play. I was in the Tiger system for a season and a half in Double-A Erie, and their pitching staff is pretty loaded with some talent that's going to pay dividends for Detroit. Off the top of my head, guys like Zach Reiniger, who's at the big league level, Bo Burrows, Spencer Turnbull, Kyler Funkhauser. You talk about guys with electric arms coming through the system. Outfielders, Michael Gerber, he's in the big leagues now. Kristen Stewart's going to be at the big league level at some point. Grayson Greiner was a catcher. He's in the big leagues now. It's hard to pick like the best player, because they're all different. They're all special in each other's, in their own ways. But there are definitely a few where you can look at the roster, you look over the course of the season, you go, yep, that guy's on the fast track. And then when he does ultimately, hopefully make it to the big leagues, you're not surprised at all.
Oh, for sure. That's awesome, man. What's the ultimate goal for you, Hunter? Like, where do you want to go? And do you wish to continue to work in professional baseball? Is that kind of like your realm now that you have that experience, or where do you want to go?
You were asking all sorts of hard questions. I've tossed that question around in my head quite a few times. There's something about the minor leagues that I don't know. I really resonates with me, and I think you have a ton of creative freedom. There's not a whole lot of red tape that you got to get through. For example, if I want to do a horse racing promo, all I got to do is just go down the hallway and talk to my GM, and if he says yes, then it's up to me to figure out how to get it done. There's not a whole lot of red tape there. So creativity wise, we can do it a lot. But also just, I'll go back to what we said previously about a team, having an impact in the community. That's a big thing. It's not about wins and losses down here. It's about the fan experience, and it's about giving back and being a good community ambassador. And so I love that. I've really fallen in love with the role that a minor league team has in a community, and kind of what we can do to make people have a great time for 2 to 3 hours. I've really fallen in love with that. I think it takes a very special kind of person to work in the minor leagues. And not just minor league baseball, but in minor league sports in general. You don't have the resources or the manpower that you would at the big league level. So the people that are in the trenches with you, are there for the right reasons, and that's special. I've met a lot of great people in this business, and I love that. that said, I would, top of my bucket list is to win a World Series ring. And, the only way you do that is if you work in the front office at a big league club and you're lucky enough to be on a team that goes to the World Series. So, if I never get that opportunity, I'm happy because I really enjoy the minor leagues, but, ultimately it would be really cool to have a World Series ring, and be at the highest level. Kind of like a player, be at the highest level. But for right now, I'm incredibly content where I'm at. I think we're doing some great things in Myrtle Beach. We have a great staff and great leadership that really makes it easy for us to buy into what their philosophy is and gives us the support and the resources that we need to achieve those goals. So, I'm a minor league guy. I love it.
I like to hear that, man. That's awesome. It sounds like you are having fun doing what you're doing. Obviously, you'd like to make it to the next level possibly later on, but right now, this is what you're loving, and you're loving life, and you can tell it in the way that you're speaking about your job. And you're also getting to do something that a very small percentage of people get to do, because there's a ton of people like yourself that want to work in the sports industry and they just don't know where to start, or they don't understand the hustle. So when they start doing it, it gets a little too difficult. They realize it's not for them. You're actually, just like the athletes, you're that small percentage that actually gets to be surrounded by sports, and you're a sports fan yourself. So I'm happy for you. Is there anything that we can do here, myself, my listeners, anything to help you or help promote your team or anything like that?
Well, as the guy that sends out a bunch of social content, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for a shameless plug and have you guys or your listeners give us a follow. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, just search Myrtle Beach Pelicans. Our handle on Twitter is Pelican Baseball, and on Instagram it's Pelicans Baseball. So glad that's not confusing at all. But give us a search, give us a follow, and by all means, send feedback. Shoot us a DM or just shoot us a message as to kind of how you think we're doing. A part of what I'm trying to do this off season is kind of revamp our social media and give ourselves a great new strategy moving forward. So willing to take all the comments and critique that I can get. That would be awesome. And to go back really quickly, I appreciate you saying that about people that work in sports. It is a very finite small club of folks here, and that's not lost on the people that work in sports. We're really lucky to be doing what we're doing, and we always know that there's somebody else gunning for our jobs. But the support that the sports business community has for each other is tremendous. So if you're somebody that's listening to try to get into the sports business, please by all means reach out. My email is really easy. It's hunter@myrtlebeachpelicans.com. Shoot me an email and let's chat. There was a ton of people that helped me when I was first starting out, so I want to be able to return the favor. The sports community is a good one, and everyone wants to see each other succeed. So
appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And you guys heard it from him. If you want to reach out, check it. I know I have a lot of listeners that actually are, trying to do the same thing, kind of get into the sports industry, make their mark as well. So that, you might get a couple requests here by some of the listeners. I know that for sure. So Hunter, we just want to say thank you for, taking the time to join us and share your journey and your experience, your knowledge with the rest of the listeners. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we sign off?
You know what? It was a fun season, and hopefully if you guys are ever in the Myrtle Beach area, come on out to a game. We'd love to have you guys. Otherwise, whatever sport that you're working in, good luck with your season if it's just starting. And Shane, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And for myself, I think I'm going to be I need to check out South Carolina anyways. So I got to go back to the South anyways. I got to check that whole entire location. So who knows, when I go back there, I'm from the West Coast. So when I make my way back there, maybe I'll be in contact with you.
Yeah, there's some good baseball. There's a lot of good sports teams out here. So come on out, man. We'd love to have you.
Solid, man. I appreciate you, Hunter. And everybody else who's listening, you know the drill. Make sure you check it all out. Follow him. Follow the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. Check it out, and then we'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.